Thank you, guys.
We love you, Kane.
Welcome back.
Yes, good to be back.
Yeah, always a pleasure. I know we all love having you at our conventions.
Well, you know, I love doing these and meeting people and saying hello and getting paid to sign your name. Not a bad thing, but
And don't forget about the great photos y'all take.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me, Kane, I would love to know how you, or why you decided to make To Hell and Back. Your beautiful documentary. Has anybody seen it?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah, I want to
Thank you.
know all about how that happened. All about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was approached by Dennis Herbert, who had read the book that Mike Aloisi wrote called Unmasked, and wanted to do a visual version of the book, basically, and to have my story be able to be on film. So I thought about it for a while and then figured if I'm going to tell my story, I'm going to tell everything, which, you know, some people, especially actors, are like a little concerned about telling things that don't necessarily favor their personalities. So I thought, if I'm telling my story, I'm telling all of it, and some of it's hard to hear and some of it's difficult to deal with. So seems like that's the stuff that has resonated the most with people, because a lot of people have been through similar circumstances that I went through, and it seems to help people, you know, and you go through some stuff like I went through, and you got some PTSD issues, and it's really been a gratifying experience. So I'm glad I told my story. If it helped somebody get through something, then I feel very honored about that. So
It was inspirational. It was beautiful. I didn't expect to cry. I cried through the whole last half. I did, on and off. I'm like, this is so nice.
yeah, I mean, you know, it's you know, not everything's been easy, but I feel very fortunate in some of the things that have happened to me after the difficult stuff. So I'm very appreciative of everything I have now. Doing stuff like this, you know, I never expected to sign an autograph. I went into the film business to be a stuntman, and you don't try to become a stunt person to be famous, because it just never happens. But that's not the point. You want to just do what, like I said in the documentary, I wanted to make a living doing stuff that I used to do for free to entertain my friends and to scare my friends. So once I realized you could make a living and make a good living at something you were doing for fun, pretty good combination. So
There's another documentary still in production that I'm very excited about, and that's Hearts of Darkness with Adam Marcus talking about Jason Goes to Hell. So
yeah.
tell me how that one came about. If you just say, hey, yo, we're doing this.
Well, anything that people want to do regarding me having played the character, I'm happy to do so, because I feel honored that I ever played Jason. And you can imagine, just put yourself in my shoes. You're a fan of the Friday the 13th movies for 6 films, and you love the character, and now suddenly you're in the position of you are going to be that character. It was hard to really grasp that fact that I was going to play Jason, and a character I've enjoyed for 6 films. I think CJ did a great job in part 6, so I was very fortunate and to have played the character in part 7, and it was all because of John Beekler, makeup effects guy who directed part 7. He insisted to Paramount that I play the character. They kept saying, he's not really big enough, is he? And John said, trust me, he's gonna be fine. And, you know, I like to think that Beekler was correct because I played the character for 3 more films, so nobody else has ever, you know, done more than one. So my whole horror career is all because of John Beekler, and I wish he was still around because we miss him, and he was a great man and very good director, great makeup effects and everything, so we miss him.
And you got to work with him more on Hatchet as well.
Yes, and before
Right, obviously.
Jason as well. I did a movie called Prison that Rennie Harlan directed, and Viggo Mortensen was in it. And I was doing the stunts, and that's when Beekler said, have you ever worn full body prosthetics? And I really hadn't by that time. I had done some, you know, other character stuff, but just facial appliances and stuff. And he asked me if I wanted to play the character in the movie that comes out of the ground strapped to an electric chair. And I said, sure. I mean, you know, I had 3.5 hours of makeup, everything glued, lenses, dentures, everything. And the following year, based on that performance, is why Beekler wanted me to play Jason. So it's all because of a movie called Prison. I owe my career to Prison. I guess.
You work under a lot of prosthetics a lot of the time, where we can't really see who you are. What is it like developing such physical characters where you have to exude the character based on the mannerisms instead of facial expressions?
Yeah, I mean, you know, anybody will tell you that's done prosthetic work. First of all, it's very difficult, very uncomfortable, and, you know, you take 3.5 hours to put the makeup on, and then you start work. So it makes for some long days where I was in the makeup chair at 3:30 in the morning, just to be ready when they started at 7, and it's hard enough to perform, but then so often you don't have a voice either in the characters I played. There's no dialogue, so I've always said it's hard to be intimidating and scary without your voice or your facial expressions. Those are the 2 main tools an actor uses to be terrifying. So now you don't have either one of those. Now you have to be scary by just the way you move. And that's why I know you guys have heard this before, but the first time I put the makeup on in part 7, before we started shooting, I would work in the mirror and have everything on, including the hockey mask, and say, what looks intimidating to me? The way I stand, the way I move, and that's how I came up with the breathing thing, because if Jason is just staring at you, it doesn't look like he's about to explode, in my opinion. So that's why I thought, if I do the breathing, it looks more imminent that something's going to happen. So, and then, you know, over the years, when I started doing conventions, people would comment about the performance and say what they liked. And somebody said, one of my favorite things that you do that I love as Jason is when you turn your head and then your body follows. And the first time somebody told me that, I said, I do? I didn't even know I did that. It just was a natural reaction. I mean, the breathing thing I did purposely, but other stuff was just natural, and that's the biggest factor in playing a character like that. you don't want the audience to ever think that's an actor trying to be scary. You want it to look natural, and I guess that's why I continued past the first one, because I never expected to. And if you ever see an autograph of mine on probably a Part 7 item, after Part 7 came out and I started doing autographs, I used to sign Jason number 7, because that, in fact, was all I was at that time. I was just one of 7 guys that played the character. Once I started doing Part 8, the following year, if I signed something, I dropped the number 7. But I think that's a far less common autograph, because I only did it for barely a year. And I've been doing the 7, 8, 9, 10 for a long time. So, and interesting thing, I don't know if I think I must have talked about it in the documentary, but the very first shot I put on film as Jason, do you know what it is, Cheryl? What?
Fire pit, your place, where you set on fire?
No, that wasn't the very first thing, because you know that films are not shot the way they're viewed. The very first shot I ever put on film as Jason was when Tina has a vision where I'm holding Bill Butler up and I have a tent stake through his chest and he's struggling and I'm just standing behind him. It's just a vision she has. That's the very first shot I ever did as Jason.
Oh.
And unfortunately, I didn't pay attention to the very last shot I did as Jason in Jason X. I wish I had, but I kind of assumed I might continue playing the character, so I didn't think that would be my last shot. I should have, just in case, thought about it. And then you guys know that I was called into New Line Cinema to a producer's office and sat with her, just myself and her, and she said, "We're finally doing this movie, here's your script, Freddy versus Jason." So, that's the reason I'm more bothered that I was replaced, because I was told I was doing it by one of the producers, and then I was replaced. So, I think that makes it far worse than just being replaced, because every character, every actor that's played Jason has been replaced, except Derek, and that's because he's the most recent. So you could never guarantee anything. Every time I was told I was doing the next move, I was very excited and happy. But you tell me I'm doing Freddy versus Jason, and then the director is hired, and he wants to do something else. That's why it still bothers me.
Okay, audience questions. Yes, ma'am.
So I have one that doesn't really pertain to Friday the 13th, but
Okay.
I know you're part of Hollywood Ghost Hunters.
Yes.
So, is it a passion of yours to ghost hunt? And what's the best place that you've ever been that you actually felt like scared?
Yes, I mean, myself and my buddy Rick McCullum, he and I founded the group together, and it's people that enjoy ghost hunting, and our particular group are all people that make horror films. So it's kind of an interesting group of people to go ghost hunting with. Now, I am always very, very careful if I'm ghost hunting to not exaggerate something that happens, because people do it constantly. Every ghost hunter wants to have a story, so they even inadvertently exaggerate something minor because they want to have a story. So I'm very careful about that, so I have had very little stuff happen to me when I've been ghost hunting, because the little thing happens and I said, well, it could be a ghost, but it could also be this. So I tend to not get overly excited.
Where's your favorite that you've been that just had a lot of history?
Oh man, I've been to all the places. I mean, Sloss Furnaces, Waverly, of course. I love that place. But there's a new documentary about one that I did, and it's, oh God, of course I'm going to forget the name of the location now. Sorry to do that, but finally something interesting happened. I always go on a ghost hunt. I always go to the worst, most active location where the history is, so many people say stuff happened there, so I always go there by myself. Because it's not any fun to be ghost hunting with other people, because you have that, it's not scary. I mean, I want to see if I can be uncomfortable. So I always go to the worst location by myself with cameras and night vision and stuff, so.
They might be more scared of you.
I know, that's what people have said, the ghosts are afraid of you, and I say, I don't buy into that. Yeah.
I know we got more. Yeah, amen.
What is your favorite weapon? What is your favorite weapon and kill?
Well, my favorite things that I use to kill people in films are things that are not weapons. I think that's more interesting. Like my favorite Jason kill is the sleeping bag.
Oh, yeah.
It's not even a weapon. Yeah, I mean, sleeping bag, when I read that the first time, I said, oh, this is going to be talked about for a long time, because something that provides comfort, and I'm killing you with it.
It's
And in the
just
movie,
rude, man, rude.
but I just think it's creative. Anybody can kill with a hammer or a machete or, and you know, any other kind of weapon, but I don't think I've ever killed anybody as Jason with a gun, or as Victor even. So, you know, that's too easy.
You're like, these are my favorite.
That's right, you gotta kill with your hands, somehow.
Alrighty, what else? Who else? Yes.
The most ridiculous / hilarious scene I've ever seen in a movie ever is the rooftop scene. Punch that fucking guy's nose. Anything that you can tell me about shooting that, because I basically put my life around that scene. Anything else you can tell me about filming that? Because in my opinion, he's the one that got the best of you in the film. So anything cool you can tell me about that?
Yeah, it was, you know, when we're shooting the scene, we knew exactly what we were going to do, but I wasn't sure how I was going to punch his head off. What kind of punch I was going to use. I didn't know if I should go straight in, or, so that's why I did the big arm sweep. I thought it looked more dramatic. And the first time we shot the scene where I knocked the head off the dummy, I punched it so hard, they didn't expect it to go off the roof, because we're on a building in Vancouver, Canada, and it was a big building, so they thought, oh, he'll knock the head off and he'll go rolling on top of the building. But I hit it so hard that it went off the building, and one of the grips watched it go into a dumpster just by chance. No cameras were anywhere near there, because they didn't expect it to even go off the building. When it landed in the dumpster, they said, oh, we gotta shoot that. that is too perfect to knock the head off. It goes off the roof and goes in a dumpster which slams. So that was added just after the fact because of what happened. And that is my third favorite Jason kill, by the way. Second being Frozen Head in Jason X. But, you know, to be number 3 is pretty good considering how many kills I've done. All-time favorite kill is in Hatchet, though.
Yeah.
In the first Hatchet movie where the older woman tries to get away from me, and so I catch her from behind and put my hands in her mouth and rip her head apart.
Shout out to the lovely and talented Patrika Darbo.
That's right.
Love her. And she had nothing but wonderful things to say about working with you and on Hatchet. When I spoke with her, she said you were amazing.
Why doesn't she do more conventions?
And she doesn't let us, or doesn't do a lot, but she did do soap opera conventions, obviously. But you know, I've been trying to get her into the horror. I said, you did Gremlins Part 2. I said, you did Hatchet, and you have that dual fan base, and soap fans are also hella loyal, just like horror fans.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm like,
People would love to get that photo where I'm pulling her head apart, signed by both of us. I think it'd be amazing.
Patrika Kane like dual photo op, right?
Yeah.
Man,
And,
let's make it happen, guys. Right to your local con. We want Patrika Darbo and Kane Hodder.
And who besides Cheryl knows what soap opera I used to work on for years? Oh, you don't? Oh.
Stumped her.
I used to. That's correct. Days of Our Lives for many years.
Another tie into Patrika.
I did all the stunts in that show for a lot of years. I don't know, probably nobody in here has been watching the show long enough, but do you remember when Roman Brady fell off the cliff?
Yes.
And Stefano was up there with him? That was me falling off the cliff. When Roman Brady was hanging on a helicopter, that was me. When Evan, I think it was Evan, what was his last name? He was in a car that flipped. I flipped the car and all kinds of good stunts in that show. I mean, I loved working on that because every time, you know, soap opera typically doesn't shoot outdoors very often, but when Sweeps Week is coming around, which is how the shows are rated, Days would always do some big action thing outside to help the ratings. So.
Days also, they just take a lot of shots outside in like parking lots and stuff in town with the light. Natural lighting, it's like, oh, that's a different shot. And you could hear like birds in the background. But, I mean, you know who else has a Days of Our Lives connection? Kevin Spiritus.
Oh, yes,
right?
of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was married to Patrika's character in the show, so we got a little threesome going.
And he was in part 7.
Yes.
Went by Kevin Blair.
Right.
But I'm
right.
not sure what that situation was, but.
Yeah, man. All right, any other questions? Young man right there.
What's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, that's a pretty good
Favorite
question.
horror movie?
Okay, so my all-time favorite horror movie, which is quite old, but I think is still a good movie. Because other movies from this time period, you watch them now and they look so dated. And effects are not good, and makeup effects and whatever, but my all-time favorite horror movie is The Exorcist.
Oh, yeah.
And I still love that movie, man. I saw that when I was in college, going to my first semester of 3. That's all I did was I went to Nevada, Reno for 3 semesters studying geography, and then I got the bug to try and do stunts, and I never went back to college, which could have been a big mistake if I hadn't made it in the stunt business, because then I didn't have a degree, which which is not probably the best way to go, but in my case it worked out. But my favorite horror movie to work on besides when I'm playing the killer, of course those are going to be my favorite, Hatchet, Friday, BTK, Ed Gein. My favorite horror movie, I guess you'd call it horror, that I worked on as a stunt person was Seven.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a great movie. And
What's in the box?
yeah, what's in the box?
Did not
Yeah,
hear that.
that was classic.
I'll hear that.
And we did a lot of, stunt things throughout that movie, and actually was involved in doing the stunt where Brad got injured. I don't know if he got injured for real doing some of his own stunt work, and had to have surgery on his hand and everything because he was doing some stuff that, maybe a stunt person should have been doing, but he was very physically capable. So loved working with that guy because he has a stuntman's attitude for an actor. And he played a stuntman later in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? So, yeah, that was just an amazing film, I think, really well done.
Anyone else? All right, way in the back.
Alright, how was it, doing like all like the kill scenes in Friday the 13th? How fun was doing that?
How fun was killing people?
Yeah.
Oh,
All the moves were doing.
Every single kill I ever did as Jason or as Victor, I always try to add my own flavor into it. Sometimes it's not really apparent, and other times it's obvious what I added to it, but as you probably know, I feel like I have murdered more people on film than any actor in history.
Absolutely.
I don't see how that can be disputed, unless somebody counts, an automatic weapon, then that's easy. But all of my
Or a
kills,
bomb.
yeah, all of my kills are one at a time. So I don't think there's an actor that can claim that more than me. And I'm gonna actually probably kill her for leaving the audience. Watch your back. But it's so much fun to do those kind of things, and when you have a director like Adam Green that lets you add to a kill. I mean, when I don't know how many of you have seen Victor Crowley, the fourth Hatchet film, but Felissa Rose is in the movie, and she tries to call for help on her cell phone. Yeah, so I'm not too crazy about that. And that's when I do what I did to her. I mixed company, can't really talk about what I did, but it was horrifically violent and funny as hell. Because when her hand is sticking out of her mouth, holding the cell phone, and I believe you can still hear 911, what's your emergency? Her arm is detached and through her body now, and phone still works. I don't know if that would really be possible.
It didn't get water damage?
We might have to try it.
All right, who else, sir?
With all the recent remakes and sequels, is there a party that's kind of relieved that how bad they've been, that Friday 13th is kind of in a legal limbo right now, that they haven't try to redo it again?
Well, I mean, the fact that I was replaced as I was, as I talked about earlier, I was always kind of like, I was still a fan. I still went to the theater and saw Freddy vs. Jason because I was a fan. And that's the last one I've seen, because when I saw the trailer of the remake, it really wasn't what I pictured Jason as. Looked more like a survivalist in the woods and too human or something. So I didn't care to see it myself, but you know, there's been 12 movies. How do you not do a 13th, Friday the 13th? And have me killing people? Come on. I would love to do it, but, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I was just honored that Gun Media wanted me to do the motion capture for the video game. And we're currently doing another one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I'm doing the motion capture for Leatherface. So it's kind of fun. I'm trying to make it reminiscent of Gunner's performance in the first movie. So, you know, I would still love to play the character again, but I doubt it's gonna happen just because of legal stuff. So.
All right, and we're right behind, yes.
Who was your favorite final girl to fight? And also another question, is it true you are a juggalo?
He looks like a gigolo.
Oh, I'm a wannabe gigolo. But a whoop whoop juggalo too. I've been a fan of ICP and Twisted for a long time. I did a video with ICP and Twisted way back in the day for my favorite song that they did, Another Love Song. And so yeah, I still listen to their music. I know I'm old as shit, and I'm still listening to ICP. What the hell? What was the other part of the question? Favorite final girl has to be Laura. I mean, nobody ever battled Jason like she did. And that's why it's my favorite movie, not just because of the look of Jason, but because of Tina making so many things happen to Jason that nobody was ever able to do before. It made it more fun for me as a stunt person to do the movie. I mean, it's my favorite fire stunt that I've ever done. I was on fire for 44 seconds, which is incredibly long to do a fire stunt. And, you know, it just, the whole movie, if they had let some of the violence remain in the film, it would have been so much better, but everything was cut out. And it was still a good movie, I think. So, yeah, it's Tina. Lar Park, Lincoln.
How long were you on fire for, in the House 3, a horror show? How long were you on fire in that?
Well, that one wasn't too bad because I was only partially on fire. And, you know, quickly, a quick story that Lance Henriksen used to tell and probably still does. He says, yeah, I did a movie with Kane, and the entire scene that we did together, Kane was looking me right in the eyes. And people are always like, why is that such a big deal? Don't you do that when you're acting? You look at the other actor? And people, he gives a long pause and he says, the only difference was Kane was on fire at the time. And I was doubling Brian James. And while I was on fire, I was pointing and looking at him and talking. Even though he can't really hear me, I was talking to him. So he was amazed that I would have the presence of mind to still act while I was on fire. Especially, you know, since I got burned so badly at the beginning of my career, and then I continued doing fire stunts, so I guess I'm dumb as shit.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I love serial killers,
Yes.
and you're a great actor. You did those bravely. So are you thinking of crime's like becoming a big thing these days. So like, it doesn't even have to be like a notorious serial killer, just a movie doing that. You ever thought of going in that route? More, whether it's a made up one or an actual serial killer?
Yes, so Charlie Band and Bill Butler, who is the guy that I'm holding up in that very first shot I ever did as Jason. He did my makeup in the movie because Beekler was directing, so he couldn't really have hands-on in the makeup. But Charlie Band and Bill Butler approached me and said they wanted me to direct a segment of the film, and if I did direct, then I also would play a character. And they asked me what kind of, serial killer type character would you like to play, and why, what are the reasons for this guy to be killing people? So I thought about it for a couple weeks, and I came up with an idea that I think is pretty interesting as the reason that my character is going to be killing people. And I don't really want to say what it is because it'll be revealed in the film, but I think it's a pretty unusual reason. It's, most serial killers do it for the thrill or the depravity of their personality, whatever you want to say. But I wanted this guy to have a reason for killing people that the public could look at and say, almost understand it. It's almost, I wouldn't say justified, but there's more of a reason behind it, and I think it's a very cool idea, and they are currently working on the script, so keep an eye out for that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Sir.
She's back, so we're all good.
Did you poop? Trying to be social, that's all. Why are you giving me a look?
So, with like the movie Monster, I remember sitting there watching, go, honey, it's Kane. Kane's on screen. She's like, yeah, okay, Kane Hodder. Is there any other movies not horror related that like really stand out, like it was a fun movie to be a part of? Like,
Oh, so many. I mean, God, I think I've
that movie was great.
175 films or something. But Monster is one of the top ones because it was a small budget film. Charlize Theron, of course, playing Eileen Wuornos, who was a serial killer, one of the few female serial killers. And Patty Jenkins was directing, who has gone on to direct Wonder Woman. And I got the job of stunt coordinator. And which is fine because a lot of the films I did, I was just stunt coordinator. I'd do some stunts myself, hire all the other stunt people. And once we started shooting Monster, everybody on the crew was amazed by Charlize's performance. Unbelievable. And while we were shooting, people were saying, she's gonna get an Oscar. And then other people were like, nah, I mean, it's too small of a movie. Nobody's ever gonna see it. Well, sure enough, she did get an Oscar for it. But we were shooting in Florida, and we're coming up to the scene where she gets arrested in the biker bar. And the director asked me if I wanted to play the undercover cop that arrests her. And I was like, of course, that would be great. And we did the scene where I have to like lure her out of the bar so as not to create a huge commotion. you see an undercover cop arresting somebody in a biker bar, somebody's gonna retaliate. So we had to get her out of the bar and then do the scene. And I loved the whole scene, because I just talked to her at the bar and get her out, and she was amazing in her performance, because she did everything she could to not be attractive. And, you know, actors and actresses are very vain. And for somebody to embrace a role that much, she deserved the Oscar. But the interesting thing about that scene was that we shot it in the bar, the exact bar where Eileen Wuornos was arrested. And I was talking to the owner of the bar, and I said, can you believe that this is where Eileen Wuornos was arrested? And the owner says, yeah, I was here. And I said, so what we're shooting, how accurate is it? And he says, it's exactly what happened. So it was very, very cool to reenact an actual scene that happened in the location where it happened. So that was one of my higher moments as a stunt coordinator doing that film. Yeah.
All right, I saw some hands over here. Yes.
It's really not a question, but I wanted to thank you for meeting my fiance because of you.
And how did that happen?
I've always loved horror movies, and I
We watched Friday the 13th together.
Wow. So I had a hand in getting you guys together, huh? That's cool. I'll have to kill you both now. Is that all right? You don't mind, right? You don't understand, certainly.
As long as you don't know.
Don't answer your door.
Any more over
You
there?
think that'll work? If you don't answer the door, you think I'm gonna just turn around and say, oh, I guess they're not home.
Next door.
I'm going through the fucking thing.
I'll send you a postcard.
Yeah.
So I recently watched like I4 and your Ed Gein movie. What is kind of your favorite movie where you're sort of the headline, not in a mask?
BTK is right up there, because another guy that existed, no makeup, no prosthetics or anything. And, you know, first of all, I never thought I'd play the main character in a film again, because I was just doing stunts. I was happy to do that. And then started playing the title character, and that's one of the ones that's right up there, because of, you know, you got to be scary, but then, you know, people like the guy, so you have to be likable, and for an actor, that's a pretty good wide range of emotions, to be likable and then killing people. So fits my personality perfectly.
Well, guys, that's about all we have time for today, but thank you very much. I know we didn't get to everybody, so please go see Amy's table and ask her questions, okay?
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it very much.